Would you believe in me if I told you that one of the greatest Disney songs ever written is not found in one of their animated movies? And what if I told you that it wasn't in one of those direct-to-DVD sequels either? Twice Charmed is a stage musical sequel to Cinderella that you can only find on Disney Cruise Line, and because of that, so many Disney and musical theater fans have no idea that this show even exists, never mind this song. I absolutely adore Believe in Me, and seeing this show when I was just 7 years old is one of those core memories that made me want to be a performer. So as we talk about the instrumentation, rhyme, meter, lyrics, and characterization, I'm gonna shed some light on what makes this song amazing. But beyond all that, I am going to reveal the secret storytelling and songwriting technique that makes Believe in Me a masterpiece. Good day, everybody. It is Calxiyn here, ready to nerd out on Calxiyn Cares Too Much about something that maybe only I care about, but I'm gonna make you care. Now, as much as I would love it if this video was sponsored by Disney Cruise Line, as you can see, I am at home, in a heat wave, with a broken air conditioner, and so you might be able to hear the fan that is over here, but we really have no choice because it's the only thing keeping me alive. Let's get into it. Since 99% of my regular audience had no idea that this show existed until 5 minutes ago, I'm gonna give you the Calxiyn Cliff Notes version on what the show is about. This show is very similar to the direct-to-DVD sequel Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time. We start with Cinderella and the prince getting married, Lady Tremaine and the stepsisters are lamenting like, why wasn't it us? Why did she get this and we didn't? But in the movie, Anastasia finds the fairy godmother's wand just lying on the ground, whereas in this, they make a wish and their wicked fairy godfather comes to answer their prayers. He has a very fun villain song if you guys want me to talk about that in the future, but they basically make a wish to turn back time. And to ensure that their plan works, they turn back time to right after the ball happened. They break Cinderella's glass slippers, they turn her mouse size to get rid of her while Anastasia and Drizella go to the palace and they brainwash the prince. The prince has been searching everywhere for Cinderella. He's not quite buying that Anastasia or Drizella was the girl at the ball, and so he's been looking everywhere, but eventually he is convinced to host another ball to see if the girl from the first ball will come back. The fairy godmother uses magic to restore Cinderella to her normal human size, and then Cinderella runs to the palace in her peasant clothes in order to stop the evil plan that Lady Tremaine and the girls are working on to basically go save the prince. Lady Tremaine says that she's an imposter, tries to get her kicked out, says like clearly a peasant girl couldn't be the girl at the ball or worthy of the prince, but the prince finds her familiar and so he stops his father, stops the guards, and lets Cinderella plead her case. And that's how we got here.
The thing from the ball, it has to be you. Nonsense, that girl looks like a princess. I'm sorry, do I know you?
My name is Cinderella. I'm the girl you've been looking for.
How dare you parade in here and interrupt the princess announcement with such a ludicrous story?
That's the truth. You know it
The
is.
prince, in love with a scullery maid, absurd! Off with you, girl, before you make an even greater fool of yourself, if that's possible.
Look at me! Not the dress, not the hair, just look at me!
Wait!
Your Highness, do not be deceived by this common girl's lies.
Lady Tremaine, when I want your advice, I'll ask for it.
Starting with the instrumental for these two sections, it is a little difficult because Disney has not provided a clean instrumental or karaoke track. Even still though, we immediately hear the fairy tale magic and also a humble woodwind instrument in the orchestration. Whatever the instrument is, you can hear it echo Cinderella and her melody line, whereas the orchestration itself is very minimal until Cinderella talks about meeting the prince at the ball. This is when the strings and everything else join in to give a richer and deeper sound. I think there's even a harp in there, and this is to call back to the romance of their first meeting.
Please.
Who am I? A girl you hardly know. And though we met just once, not very long ago, you I found not just a fantasy, but someone to believe in me.
Again, we have a lot of stereotypical magic sounds in there, but when we get to the second verse, the strings and the other instruments are swelling much more, and we even have the brass elevating her before she goes into the next little bridge.
I once was told, no matter how I tried, a prince would never love the girl I was inside. I simply believed what my eyes could see. and I forgot to believe in me.
I just find this so compelling emotionally because you can hear the journey that Cinderella is taking in the music. When the instruments echo Cinderella, it reinforces how she is entirely without support right now. She's pleading her case to the prince, and it's so quiet in this room. Everyone is judging her so much that literally her melody line is echoing off the walls because she's alone. Nobody believes her yet. But when the instruments join her, it's a good musical representation of how people are starting to believe her, and the prince, most importantly, is being convinced by her. If there is one thing that I think composers should absolutely live by, it's that you should be able to take away the lyrics, take away the vocal line, and still be able to understand the story being told. If we were able to take the vocal line away, what we would hear is how Cinderella starts off as timid and unsure, but what she is sure about is their love. And so when she mentions that, she grows more confident because that is the thing that she knows in her heart is true. And so as she grows more confident, the instrumentation does as well. And so we're able to follow the highs and lows of her journey so far. It's very nuanced and detailed, not having any repetitive elements. Though verses are copies of each other, as you guys will be able to see as we move in here, each phrase should have different musical reactions to reflect how the lyrics have different messages. Very nice segue into the structure here. This song is really short, and because of that, I found it a little difficult to categorize like what is a verse versus what is a chorus. But if I had to say anything, I would say that like the exposition part here, that is technically the verse, but then in you, and then I simply believed, like when we're talking about the believing in those last two lines, like that's like the chorus, whereas all the exposition information is the verse. That said, looking at the structure here, this song executes two concepts very well. Content dictates form, and the idea of surprising yet inevitable that I always talk about. It keeps a consistent structure as we see here because these sections are doing the same thing. Again, Cinderella is telling her story, and so they both share the same structure. But it also keeps things surprising. Like right here, we have this 10-8, and then over here we have this 11-9. And so we're growing in intensity. And so mostly they share the same shell. But they change when it's appropriate because now we're building into the bridge, we're getting into something different, and so I like the growth that happens right here with the syllable count. When it comes to the alliteration or fun sounds, I think that's something I noticed about this team is that they like a lot of like back end alliteration in addition to the front end. And so what I mean by that is something like found and fantasy. That's a front end alliteration thing. It's the F, it's the F, right? But there's also met, just, not, forgot, to being back to back, which may not seem very important or connected at first glance, but the T's give it a certain crispness and also help with diction. Also down here, as you can see, we have what, was, would. And something especially great about this is that there's repetitive language that, when combined, actually creates nice contrast. So we have met just once, but then we have not just a fantasy, and that uses just, right? So it's a repetition of just, but it's also to highlight a contrast. Despite the fact that they met just once, it's not just a fleeting feeling, it's not just a fantasy. Similarly, just like how Cinderella and the prince met just once and she thought that there was love between them, Cinderella was also told once, right, that a prince would never love her, and so we have contrast there. Like she thought that she fell in love this night, and then she was told by someone that it could never happen. And this usage makes things really easy to follow, and it feels satisfying. It just like scratches a little itch in your brain because we see how the exact same language is being used in different lyrics to tell different parts of the story or to build on different parts of the story. When it comes to rhyming here, everything is pretty much perfect except for fantasy and me, and that doesn't really bother me because fantasy doesn't have anything to begin with. Like there's nothing that they could have done about this, and so me is perfectly fine. I feel like it also gives it a level of humbleness because fantasy is like this grand word, but then it's just like little old me, like little old Cinderella, right? And so I think that that's really great. But what really excites me is the lyrical meaning here, because we start off so strong. We're establishing the question that this song sets out to answer right in the first lyric. Every show needs a thesis, needs a point, needs a moral, something that they want the audience to take away from it. But I'm also a big believer in every song needing a thesis too. Every song needs to be a little story contained in of itself. And so I feel like that the question here is just, it's so good because this is the thesis of this song. It's Cinderella asking like, who Who is she? Will she be herself or put on airs? Will the prince accept who she truly is? Does that matter? Is what matters more, even if the prince doesn't accept her, that Cinderella stood in front of all these people and accepted herself? This is Cinderella's chance to tell the prince who she truly is. But it's also about asserting herself, because everyone is talking about the girl from the ball, right? And this is proclaiming that she is not the girl from the ball as her primary identity. She is Cinderella first. Cinderella went to the ball. It's not that the girl that was at the ball used to be Cinderella. As I mentioned before, the fairy godmother returned Cinderella back to her human size, but there's a really funny gag where Cinderella's just like, aren't you forgetting something? And the fairy godmother's like, of course, good luck, and like gives her a big hug. And of course, Cinderella was talking about the transformation, the dress, the glass slippers, her hair. Cinderella herself is not superficial, but the people around her are. And the transformation is like Cinderella's armor. It makes her feel like she belongs in that world. But instead of being able to put on that armor and look like a princess again, Cinderella has to be vulnerable and prove against all odds that the prince loves Cinderella for who she is. That the princessness of her was not the fancy gown, it was her heart. It was inside of her heart, no matter what Lady Tremaine says. Of course, even in the original movie, the prince loves Cinderella for who she is. He doesn't reject her because she's a peasant. I mean, they're going around to like every house in the kingdom. They know, they clearly know that there's a possibility that she may be peasant born, but they don't seem to care. But there's another lyric in this show where Lady Tremaine says that she's turning Cinderella into mouse size to show her that her life is insignificant and small. She has made Cinderella doubt herself more than in the original movie, and this is the resolution to that doubt and that uncertainty. Who am I is an excellent way to start the song, because it's the question that everyone has been asking. The prince, the townspeople, Lady Tremaine has asked her, like, who do you think you are compared to me and my daughters, right? Everyone has been asking, who was that girl at the ball? And now Cinderella has also been asking that about herself. And this verse continues to be strong by establishing Cinderella's pure intentions, that it wasn't about the fantasy of marrying a handsome prince. Like, she's not like her stepsisters trying to trick the prince into marrying her, right? It was that the prince believed in her, searched for her, cared about finding her. In the opening number of the show, there's a very interesting lyric where Cinderella sings that she's no longer afraid she'll have to spend her life all alone because she has found love with the prince. And this is something I feel like people misunderstand about the original Cinderella. Like, people get on Cinderella for being a passive character who was saved by a man. But love, loneliness, family, that fundamentally requires another person. That's why that argument always bothers me. Like, the point of Cinderella is not about the prince falling in love with her. It's about the transformative power of love, and how the prince treats Cinderella is how things are supposed to be. All Cinderella's life, she has been mistreated by the people that are supposed to love her. And so the fact that the prince, right, this epitome of royalty and grandness, like everything that Lady Tremaine and the stepsisters glorify, that position and that power, right? They glorify the prince, but that prince shows more care for her than they ever did. He fights for a peasant girl, and Cinderella is about what that means to a girl that has spent her life all alone and has had no one else to care about her. This is the first time since Cinderella's father and mother died that she has felt love and value and care from another person, that somebody made her feel important and like she was worth rescuing. To me, that is what love is. Love is saying you are worth it, you are important, you are valued, I want you in my life. And this is a line that they both have after the line that I just mentioned. They both sing, "And with you I am twice who I was on my own." That is the point. And this happens in regular Cinderella too, but a lot of people ignore it. There's another song in this musical where the prince reiterates that Cinderella saw beyond his royalty. And in the movie, she doesn't know who the prince is. She's like, I have to go because I haven't met the prince yet, right? She's just making an excuse to get away, but she still doesn't even know that he's the prince, and the prince is like gobsmacked. Like, here's this girl who's been dancing with him all night, and she's been dancing with him just because he's him, not because he's the prince or because he's royalty, unlike all those other superficial people that were sucking up to him earlier. Cinderella is ultimately about two people who see each other for their true selves. And part of this story, in terms of this stage show, is whether or not they can find each other again, not by the fairy godmother given magic, but by the magic that is love. And I know that that's really sappy, but it's true. That love is the most powerful magic of all. And that's why the second verse here is so important, because it showcases that Lady Tremaine's words did get to Cinderella, that Cinderella lost sight of what matters and what she values, going as far as to ask the fairy godmother, like, hey, can you transform my outfit and everything to make me the girl from the ball again? Because she wonders if Lady Tremaine might be right. In the original timeline, this was never really a concern of hers because she had evidence, she had proof. But without that proof, she wonders if anyone will actually believe her. And so especially this set of lyrics is just so powerful to me because it personally made me think of so many of us were confident once, right? Especially as children. And especially for those of us who are neurodivergent, right? I think that we can all remember a point where we were basically told to shut up. And then we just stopped talking because we were like, oh, nobody actually wants to hear what we have to say. At least that happened to me, and I stopped talking for a long time because of that. As we grow up, we hear all these comments about ourselves, and that makes us doubt. Other people's comments about us become the voices that echo around in our head. Musical theater songs have very specific situations, but at the heart of it, there's a human experience that we can all relate to, and I think that's so especially true of this song. And another reason I think that this is so impactful is because the way that they usually stage these shows is you're in the audience, but then characters will pass through the audience and stuff, so it makes you feel like that, like you're actually there. So when Cinderella's singing, yes, she's singing to everyone at the ball and she's singing to the prince, but when you really think about it, she's also singing to the audience too. It's like a audience clap if you believe in fairies kind of moment, but you know, a little bit more subtle than that. Like, we are all kind of Cinderella, like we are the common folk here. As I've discussed in my other videos about fairy tales and fairy tale history, like fairy tales were told by the common folk, and Cinderella is the perfect representation of that, and so she's giving the audience a voice in this moment too. So far the song is both technically amazing but also emotionally hitting, because all of us will relate to that experience of thinking that we found a place where we belong and then having that doubt creep in of whether or not that we actually belong there. It has the technical prowess, but it also is emotionally hitting. So how does the next part hold up? So moving on to this bridge thingy, I just love how the music builds here. I love how around Shed the Same Tears it's a little bit more somber. Again, the instrumentation is reacting to the lyrics that are being sung. But then as Cinderella rallies everyone, like, haven't you guys felt this way too? Haven't we all felt this way? It's getting powerful and it's complete with the trumpets and the drums.
Is a princess really different from a peasant girl? When our hearts break, we shed the same tears. Does anyone deserve less than a chance at happiness when we all share the same hopes and fears?
In addition to how the instrumental builds, I love how the structure builds here too. It's different than what came before, which is very important. Again, content dictates form, all that fun stuff. We should have a different form here because before it was exposition basically, but this is now like an emotional argument that she's making. She revealed that she was the girl at the ball. She revealed that she was a peasant, but now it's building on that by saying, I don't believe we're that different from each other. We have these 2 lines of 9 here in order to anchor the audience, but then we also have this 4-4 and this 7-7 in order to create a contrasting feeling. So my interpretation for why this is a little bit shorter here is because I think that there is an element of frustration. Like, how do you guys not get this, right? But there's also like a little audacity because when you think about it, in the past, royalty was a God-given right. Like, if you were a royal person or of royal blood, you were on the throne because God put you there. Like, that was the idea. So for her to say this is like a radical thought almost, and so I think that that's why it would have a very different feeling if it was like, is a princess really different than a peasant girl? I don't like that at all, whereas this is like more intimate but also crisp. There's much more power in it being, is a princess really different than a peasant girl? And so when Cinderella gets here and sings the entire phrase all the way through, we know that her confidence is growing, her hope is growing, because she can see that she's convincing people, or at least she believes in what she's saying, and that's more important than convincing anyone. In terms of alliteration and fun sounds, I really love the contrast between princess and peasant. It gives me chills every time this line. And then we also have different and deserves, and that feels especially connected because it's, does a peasant deserve to be treated as less than just because of how we were born? When and we is very nice, and so is shed and same. And there's more about shed, and we'll talk about that in a second. But coming down here, we also have happiness and how that connects to hearts and hope. And then over here, share and save is amazing. We have nice use of repetition in this language because we have this anchoring of when we. It also happens down here, right? When we happens as well. But then shed and share is that contrasting word, and they both start with that sh, right? And then we have same in order to anchor that. So I like shed the same, share the same. Like, they're crazy for that. I love this part because Cinderella's point is highlighted perfectly by the contrast here. And the point that Cinderella is making here is actually tied with the thesis of the original movie's opening number. They sing, "Though you're dressed in rags, you wear an air of queenly grace. Anyone can see a throne would be your proper place." This is sort of the motto of the Disney princesses and the Disney princess line or franchise, right? Anyone can be a princess. A princess is in your behavior and your actions. And thinking that other people deserve less because they're peasants is not very princess-like. We all share the same hope that one day we will find love. We are all afraid of being alone. We have all suffered heartbreak in some way and have felt like our dreams were just too far out of our reach. This is such a moving section because it's not just about Cinderella asserting that she does not deserve less, which is true, she doesn't, right? That is definitely part of it, but the bigger part of it is telling the audience, like you, in the audience, you do not deserve less. This song just facilitates the human connection within the audience as well, because you're sitting there and you realize that everybody in this room has had a dream, has had a wish, and that those dreams may have gone unfulfilled, or we told ourselves that we should stop trying to fight for them. And so Cinderella is again rallying us, making us recognize the humanness in each other. And this just gets me emotional every time, and I don't know if I'm just a crazy Disney adult, but I'm like, you're right, Cinderella, I shouldn't think less of myself. I don't deserve less, I deserve more. I need to fight for my dreams. And so when a song can convince you of that, can make you feel that emotionally moved, you have a banger on your hands, so to speak. The alliteration kind of derailed us into the lyrical meaning anyway, but to talk about the rhymes briefly, I really like tears and fears. I like the back end thing of less and happiness. Again, makes it feel very connected, and it reinforces, right, that it's not just any sort of heartbreak, because we experience a lot of different types of heartbreak and grief, but it's the fear of being alone that is referenced in the show earlier. Like, that is the same hope and fear that everyone shares. Everyone shares a fear of being alone. It's not just, oh, that you don't get the promotion at work, or that you fear that your YouTube channel won't do well, or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? It's that fundamental thing that makes us all human, that we are all afraid of ending up alone, that we all want home, love, family, to quote Anastasia for a second. The heat is literally making my brain crazy and unhinged, so we need to get to this last section here. And this instrumentation is just so powerful and bombastic. It brings in all the instruments that we heard earlier, and we hear how they all support Cinderella. We also have the royal trumpets coming in order to reinforce that thing that I mentioned earlier, that a throne would be Cinderella's proper place because of how she carries herself. Cinderella's power has always been from believing in herself. So now that she is believing in herself again, the instrumentation is growing more powerful too. The most powerful that it's been since the song started.
I used to dream and wish with all my heart I'd find my one true love and make a brand new start. I spent my life hoping someday my dreams would set me free, but now I am learning the true reality that I can wish, hope, and dream, but it's never meant to be unless I believe in me.
In terms of the meter and the structure here, the section does a great job at incorporating earlier sections, but in a new way. Like, you'll notice that this part is very similar to the verses that we heard before, but we have that surprising yet inevitable. This is the finale, and so we can take little pieces of that familiarity, but then also change them, right? Because we are building towards the conclusion of the song, so now everything has to be way more dramatic than it was in those verses. I really like wish with. I think that that's such a great line, like wish with all my heart. I thought that was great. And I also like my and make, but there's something else here in terms of the actual language. Like I love find and how find is in a line before make, because love is something that Cinderella found, but having a life together is something that it doesn't just happen. You have to work for it, you have to build it, you have to make it, and I think that's just so good! The other reason I really like this is because it tells us a lot about Cinderella too. Cinderella could have just been a princess. I don't know exactly how to explain this, but she could have just languished, right? She could have just been a part of the life that the prince already has, but she's making a brand new start with the prince independent of his royalty, like how she would with any other person. She's not just kind of, well, oh, like this is the life you already have, I'll just make a little space for myself in your already established life. It's like, no, her and the prince were going to make a brand new start together, and I really, really like that. I also like how the passive language is contrasted with the active language. Like earlier we had, I used to believe, or once, or I tried, right? Like that's all past tense, but then Cinderella says now, right? So this is an active choice she's making in the present. All these rhymes are good. We don't usually have rhyme problems in Disney songs, but I do have the rhyme category anyway. The only beef I do have, you guys may be surprised, but I do have some beef with this song. I don't know how I feel about the true reality. I think it sounds a little weird and unnatural. I wish they had just said that in reality, as in that in reality, I can wish, hope, and dream. Like we'd have to somehow get rid of the that that's over there, but I think it's really weird. Shouldn't reality always be true? Like that's what reality is. Reality is always true, right? That in reality would have been as opposed to the dreams that I thought I had before. In reality, I now think this, right? But now I am learning the true reality is as if like she was in a daydream the entire time and she suddenly like woken up, which I don't think necessarily works because I feel like that's just kind of reductive. But again, that's the only lyric that strikes me as even remotely wonky. The rest of the song is so incredibly solid that that's just a little nitpick, right? But I can't be biased just because I like the song. I would call this out in any other circumstance, so we gotta call it out here too. And I just love these lyrics at the end because they're just so powerful. And I also see a bit of a double meaning to this, and you guys can let me know what you think. But there's the first meaning of it'll never happen unless I believe in myself. But I also see kind of an underlying meaning, like it was never meant to be, as in like quotation marks, like quoting something else. It was never just fate or destiny. It was my own faith in myself all along. The primary meaning of this to me is if I don't believe in myself, my dreams won't come true. But the secondary meaning to me is it was always her. It was never magic or fate or destiny. It was always Cinderella that made her own dreams possible. And she must believe in herself again as she did the first time. Especially because Cinderella is even told by the fairy godmother, like, hey, if you didn't believe in me, I wouldn't be here. Like, if you didn't still have faith, I wouldn't be here. So it's Cinderella's strength of heart. And so I like the idea of, but it's never meant to be, but also, but it's never meant to be, right? Like, it was never meant to be. It was never destiny or anything. I did this. And so I need to take my power back and make it happen again. It's not her dreams as some sort of, again, magic, destiny, fate, or like this nebulous concept out of her control. Like, it's not like her dreams have like autonomy of their own, if that makes sense, right? Like, it was the faith that she had in her dreams, not the dreams in of themselves. And now we are at the end of the song, but with all my videos, I reveal a secret element that makes a song a true masterpiece. And before I reveal it, I just want to thank all my YouTube membership members and my patrons for making videos like this possible. If you got this far and want to enable me to make more videos and fix the air conditioner while getting early access and other cool rewards, make sure to check out the links in the description. I really appreciate it. My brain is literally like turning to mush right now because of how hot it is in here. I don't know if you guys can tell that the vibes are more unhinged than usual, but that's why my brain is sweating out of my ears. So thank you for being patient as we've done this one this week and with the fan and everything like that. But now let's reveal the secret. I love so much about this song and it makes me so emotional every single time without fail. This song is so well executed on a technical level, but it also has a lot of heart and a lot of feeling. But what is the secret element that I think makes it a masterpiece? Remember earlier when I said that all shows should have a theme and a thematic question? What exactly is the theme of Twice Charmed as a whole? There's something really interesting and compelling about how all of the characters' preconceived notions of Cinderella and the prince are challenged, but it challenges the audience's preconceived notions as well. But let me explain. If you watch my other videos, you may have heard that an opening number should introduce the world, the status quo, the cast, the conflict that may disrupt said status quo, and also the thematic question. The opening number of this show does all that, showing us that Cinderella and the prince are married, how the kingdom's reacting to it, and foreshadowing the conflict with Lady Tremaine and the stepsisters and how they are unhappy, how they believe that Cinderella is unworthy and it should have been them instead. You also may have heard in my other videos that the title is the heart of the song. Quasimodo wants to go out there, Hercules wants to go the distance, Mulan is wondering when her reflection will show who she really is inside, right? All of those things. And I've been burying the lead about this, but the opening of this musical is called All Because of a Shoe. And I'm getting chills just thinking about this, despite the fact that, again, we're in a heat wave and it's very, very hot, so that's how you know that this is good. You could see that as them just talking about, like, the butterfly effect, right? That something as small and unintentional as Cinderella leaving her shoe behind led to all this merriment and joy and love. But there is more to All Because of a Shoe. The Duke sings that like the only reason why they found Cinderella was all because of a shoe, right? The townspeople say that all this happened just because of a shoe. So does Lady Tremaine, like, oh, it's that damn shoe that caused all these problems, right? But what's interesting is that Cinderella and the prince do not focus on this aspect. Instead, they sing,
I'm the luckiest prince that the world's ever known.
I'm no longer afraid I'll live life all alone.
'Cause with you I am twice who I was on my own.
They say, 'cause with you, I am twice who I was on my own. And then the townspeople come in like, here's to love that's true, all because of a shoe. But Cinderella and the prince do not see their love as because of the shoe. They see their true love as because of each other. Again, the prince isn't like, oh, the beautiful girl that I met at the ball, right? He expresses later in the show that Cinderella made him a better person, that Cinderella was the only person that saw past his royalty. He's the luckiest prince in the world because he found a genuine, caring person who saw him as himself. The opening sets up this idea that this all happened because of a shoe, because of magic. But if it was truly just because of a shoe, what happens when the slippers are broken? That's the conflict of the show. Lady Tremaine takes away Cinderella's evidence of being the girl from the ball. And that brings us all the way to now talking about this song, Believe in Me, when Cinderella doesn't have anything from that night. And this just makes me crazy because we start with all because of a shoe, but the journey that we go on is showing us that it was never about the shoe, bestie! Like, it was never about the shoe. Cinderella and the prince finding each other again proves it was not the shoe. It was love. And this is why it's only after this song that the fairy godmother gives Cinderella her transformation again. Because the transformation that Cinderella went under in the original movie was a manifestation of her dreams. Her dreams are expressed in this song, though, the same way that they were that night. That's why she doesn't need the dress. That's why the prince recognizes her without the dress. In my other videos, I talked about how shows tend to end with a reprise of the opening number or a love song, right, to answer the thematic question. So for example, in Hunchback of Notre Dame, we end with the Bells of Notre Dame reprise where we get the answer to who is the monster and who is the man, with Clopin asking what makes a monster and what makes a man. In Beauty and the Beast, it's the Tale as Old as Time reprise to answer the questions of the opening and the opening narration. But all because of a shoe is not the reprise for this show, because that is not the answer to the question. Twice Charmed ends with a dream is a wish your heart makes, reinforcing that the theme in this song and from the original movie, that was the real theme all along that the audiences tend to forget. The audiences think it was all because of a shoe, but it was not because of the shoe. It's proving the strength of Cinderella and the prince's love in the internal world of the story, but also to us, the audience. It was the power of believing in your own dreams, and that is the message that the audience tends to forget. We go into the show being like, yeah, it was all just because of a shoe, wasn't it? And then we find out, no, it wasn't because of a shoe, it was because of Cinderella's faith in her dreams. That's why we have, no matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing the dream that you wish will come true, because that was the goddamn point. And we walk away realizing, like, we misunderstood the original Cinderella too, because the theme in Believe in Me is the same theme that was in that original movie, strength of heart, no matter what we face. That is the true lesson of Cinderella. And the audience can leave the show having a renewed faith in themselves, because now the audience is like, yeah, it wasn't about the magic, it was about her perseverance, and that's something that anyone can have. Did the magic help? Sure, but it doesn't mean that we can't make our own magic. Magic comes from us. Just like how Cinderella's transformation came from herself. Whether it's with a fancy dress or it's in a song, she was able to convey her dreams, express her dreams, and that was the real magic. So often we wait for everything to be perfect, for everything to align in the right way, but it's not stuff or a lack of stuff that makes it so people don't follow their dreams. We are our biggest obstacle, and if we believe in ourselves, then it will be meant to be. This song is here for us whenever we need it, and that's why I think it's one of the greatest Disney songs ever made. Because just like all the other masterpieces that Disney has made, this song will continue to return as a refrain of hope for us and what it means to believe in these stories. But if you want to hear about more hidden gems, check out my video about Free from Barbie, the Princess and the Pauper. It's such an underrated movie musical. The music is so good. I'm never gonna stop talking about it. Let me know if you guys want me to talk about any other Disney Cruise Line songs or productions. I really love all the productions on the ship. I was on the ship in last September, and I was so lucky to be there at that time because it made me want to be a performer when I was a child, but then as an adult, it just reignited my passion. It reminded me why I decided to go through years of musical theater school and put myself through hell. So I would highly recommend it. There are videos on YouTube of the full shows, like from the stateroom camera and stuff like that, like the recordings that they have of the shows in the stateroom. And so you can watch them. You don't need to go on the ship to do that, and I would recommend it. This has been Calxiyn caring way too much and melting away. Hopefully by next week everything will be better because my brain has literally melted out of my ears. I'm so glad that I covered something that I'm really passionate about because, again, my brain is just not working. I'll see you next time. Bye!